Ok, ya en un minutito más se conecta Amol y vamos a invitarlo de una vez.
Hey
Hi,
Chris.
hi, Amol.
Hey, how's it going?
Fine, thank you. How about you?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. Happy to be here. It's a sunny day outside. Can't complain.
Excellent, excellent. So, well, it
Yeah.
was really interesting to talk a couple of days ago with you, and it's I wanted to ask you, why did you create the ENSU app?
Yeah, totally. And so I think for for context, like we had some chats around music and mental health and realized we have very similar views. And so yeah, just touching on like my background in personally before I started the company. So when I was younger, when I was in college and soon after graduating from university, I actually had very serious depression and anxiety. And yeah, it was really bad. Like I was like a typical, very, insecure young adult who was having a lot of challenges and really struggling to deal with it. So I was suicidal at my worst. I consider
Okay,
myself, very lucky to yeah, thank you. Like very lucky to be alive still.
indeed.
And yeah, I grew up in a culture where I didn't have my family wasn't always super understanding of, they didn't understand all the nuances of what was going on. And so went from there where I was really struggling and in a very difficult place to then learning how to actually understand my mind, learning how to then build healthy habits to actually get better, learning how to then measure the progress, which is really important with mental health. How do you measure you're getting better? And that's
Okay,
where, yeah, and that's where I kind of realized that, it had a very big impact on my life. So I'm like, okay, this is something that I really want to give back to. And my co-founder Travis had sort of his own challenges in mental health,
okay,
and yeah, that's when we came across. We said, you know what, we were going to do something in mental health, and then we stumbled onto the music angle. So we're
okay.
doing, and you probably know a lot more about the music side initially from your background, but
Yeah.
we realized that. We did a bunch of research here in the Bay Area, and the number one, what we found was that the number one most common, most frequently taken action by people when they're in moments of distress was to listen to music.
Okay.
A lot more
That's very
research
powerful.
realizes a big link between, yeah, music and emotion, and that's what led us to doing what we're doing now.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, just as a reminder for the new people who've joined, so we're talking about what both of us are doing with music and mental health. So I think Chris, for you, what made you decide to get into making music professionally? You have a very unique style of music. I'd love to hear what got you.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I've been always very fond of music. Since I was a kid, I used to go to the stores and spend hours buying cassettes and tapes. And while my friends were playing around, I was very deeply connected to music. And then I grew up and was a bit also when my friends wanted to go out and play, like I would go to my room and play guitar, and it was a very a very meaningful, maybe subconsciously, but it was very interesting moment.
Yeah.
And actually, I was thinking around um, those days. I love to play Metallica, which I was very into heavy metal, and so.
Of course,
And it
yeah.
was interesting because at that time, most of the songs written by them were talking about death, and
Mm,
it was interesting because the most of the heavy metal culture were into getting wasted and more
Of
shallow
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
meaning, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that was my first connection to death. And then in 2003, my brother passed away. So I used to write a couple of songs like for um, parties and for my
Mm.
girlfriends back then.
The
But
getting wasted phase.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then at the same time, another friend was making a movie, and he was also a very good friend of my brother. So he asked me and to do this song, to record this song in a more professional way. So
Mm.
I started figuring around with different friends, and then I came up with in a studio, Honky Kong Studio, and
Okay.
he told me like, well, if you recorded all the voice, the vocals, the guitar, the bass, and basically you did all the song, why
Yeah,
don't you
yeah,
come
yeah.
one day to the studio and
Yeah.
we'll record it from scratch so it has a professional level
Yeah.
for use on the movie.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
then I went, and it was like a wow experience. I was like
Yeah.
completely amazed by the technology of the recording and how the sound could transform an emotion.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
then after that, it was like the turning point, and I started recording on a more professional way. In the
Nice.
beginning, I was I had a former band, and it was interesting because at that time, my goal perhaps was to be famous and to do like the
Yeah,
same rock wasting
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
And then we got different paths. My drummer friend, he wanted to sound more like 311, and I was more into Leonard Cohen, so it was
Yeah, yeah,
completely
yeah,
opposite way. And
yeah.
so we took different paths, and then I started composing and like downloading all my emotions into songs,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and that's how I came to record this on a more professional way, and did my first
Nice.
album called Songs for Yoshimi, which is dedicated to my dog who passed away back then,
Okay,
because she
okay.
reminded me like to be very present, and she stood the whole
Yeah,
recording, and it was a very interesting experience. But
yeah.
that was a turning point for me to get into
When
professional music.
Yeah, and it sounded like that was also the turning point of when you went from like general, hey, look at me, I'm cool music to like let's kind of sing about something more meaningful as well.
Exactly, to do something more
Yeah,
meaningful. And
yeah.
then that was it. So I wanted to ask you, how do you think like music relates to the mental health process?
Yeah, yeah. So really good question, and it's really interesting. So yeah, what we found in the research that we had done was that that most common thing that people are doing when it's like, oh shit, something's gone wrong, and when the people are trying to, understand what's happening and then talk to other people, the most common thing people are doing is music. And so there's a big reason why. So, we dug into the research, and it turns out there's more than three different fields of science and psychology around that link between music and emotion, and it's still an early field. So there's an extreme link between the two. So you look at one is kind of on the impact that music has on other people, and so on people's brains. And so there's a field called music and neuroscience, which looks at the impact that music has on our brain. And you can
Okay,
see that as people play certain types of music, and that's kind of different for everyone, it has impacts on our brain that kind of release oxytocin, which is like the love hormone. When you're in love with someone and you get that really warm, fuzzy feel, the
okay,
music actually lights up the same part of your brain that does that. And then it also releases dopamine, which is like a pleasure kind of symptom, pleasure indicator in the brain. And so you're seeing that it actually has the same sort of chemical impacts on your brain that even some drugs and people can have on you. So there's a big connection there. And I think it's really interesting. You get really deep into it, and it's like, man, my mind is blown. We spoke to all these researchers, and it's like the biggest dopamine hit, for example, happens just before a song drops. Like, you've got your favorite song and you're like getting pumped up for the drop. It's actually
okay.
not when the music drops. It's actually before the music drops that you have the biggest chemical release, because there's
Oh,
anticipation.
that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So it's really interesting. And then you've got then like the music and emotion side, where you've got like, why do people listen to certain types of music? And so it's really interesting there. Again, people are almost using music as a way to like apply an emotional filter to their life and kind of like regulate how they feel with music. And so you've got a bunch of these different music listening strategies. People are not aware, but every single time any one of us listens to music, we're listening to sort of 12 or 13 different strategies, which now we can identify. And an example is like, one is called solace, which is when you listen to music to feel comforted and understood and accepted. And so you can identify these different things that people are trying to sort of get from their music. And it's really a form of self-medicating your emotions and really processing your emotions to kind of deal with reality, but doing it in a healthier way than kind of drugs or drinking. Like, you can listen to music and actually get some of the similar types of effects.
Exactly. I read a couple of months ago this book called I had it here, the Musicophilia, which is this book by Oliver Sacks, the guy who wrote Awakenings, that movie with Robin Williams.
Yeah.
And it has a very interesting data about the Alzheimer patients that they don't remember their names, their family, once the illness has gone to a certain level. But we triggered specific songs, they would come back alive and return to all their emotions, and they could remember perfectly and even sing the songs from their childhood or whatever.
Correct.
So the music it's very interesting, that has a very deep tissue level connection.
Correct. I mean, people, we have no idea right now what music is. Like, it's unique to sort of humans have done it. There's a big tie into memories. So it actually is clinically used in Alzheimer's treatment. So there's a big tie into memories. You see when people play music to plants, they actually grow faster and grow healthier. So we don't yet know all there is to know about music, but we know that there is a big connection. And they're even using it in like stroke recovery. So, you know, helping people change the way they walk by playing them certain type of music, putting sensors on them, and then you track how those sensors change how you walk, and then they can remove the sensors, and then your walking is changed and fixed by the music. So it's really interesting, and I think we're just in the early stages of really beginning to understand exactly how it all works.
Okay, sounds really interesting.
Yeah, thank you. And for those who are joining in, just as a reminder, we connected recently, Chris and I, and we're talking about the connection between music and your mind and how you can use music for good mental health. So just as a reminder.
Exactly. Yeah. And about my music, like the process of my music.
Yeah, because your music is really like introspective, you know. It's really like it's almost like it's very emotion and introspective related. Like what kind of drives that, and what kind of impacts are you looking to have on people through your music?
Well, actually, it began as a download process for me, as a healing process and a mental process. And then it made sense, like to share it with more people. So now, when I write and make music, the meaning is to create awareness. So through the different textures of sound and the lyrics, I mean, everybody wants to be happy. That's although you might like some style, some food, some sports, some jobs, whatever, like the core of everybody is that they want to be happy.
Yes.
And so the purpose of my music is to create this awareness in order to become present, because I think there's two main issues that avoid people being happy. Like the first one is that nothing is permanent.
Yes,
The only thing
yes,
permanent is impermanence. So that
yes,
was the title of my album, Permanent Impermanence.
yeah, yeah.
And it's a reminder because we're like, we want to hold on to our family, to our
Mm,
friends, to our jobs, to our possessions, to our everything. But in
everything.
the end, everything is ephemeral and will be gone in a certain way.
Yeah,
And the only thing for sure we have in life is that we're gonna die. That's the
yeah,
only,
yeah.
only fact for sure.
There's
And
there's this
nevertheless,
yeah, there's this analogy, when life is like a moving rope, and if you try to grab onto that rope, your hand's gonna get burnt because
exactly,
you can't grab onto that rope. It's always
exactly.
moving.
And then the more we practice death, not in a morbid way, but in a way of conscious way, the
Mm.
more we are free, we're freer to live a life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's one of the main cores of the lyrics in my music. And the other one would be like the present, to stay in the present. So
Hmm.
Enter the Void, Live Alive, and different songs talk about this momentum. And I was reading a couple of months ago this book, The Unearthed Soul. It's
Hmm.
one of my favorite books all time. And it talks about our thoughts and our emotions, that we are not our thoughts or our emotions. We're like
Yeah,
the viewers of those thoughts and emotions, but it's very difficult to like to zoom out and to view it as a picture. So we're
totally.
always like hooked in this avoidance of happiness. Like we're hooked on thinking on the future, like what's going to happen, what's my job, my family, my girlfriend, whatever, or in the past, oh, I should have done this and should have done that. So
Yeah,
we're mostly like traveling between times instead of being
correct, correct.
present. And like the best way, I've done meditation since I was a kid, so I've been practicing a lot, and that has helped my music
Yeah,
like share this message. And the more we zoom out of these thoughts and emotions, the more we can see it and enjoy the movie, whatever it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
a thought, an angry thought comes, and or a physical feeling, a pain, whatever. We can zoom out and to view it as another picture or as whatever. And this helps us like stay present and enjoy this real moment, because this is everything, the only thing we have. So right
Yeah,
now our
yeah.
talk is the only thing for sure we have. We don't
It's
know
the end.
if in a minute will come an earthquake, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not a fatalistic way, but it's rather like a realistic way of looking at things and living and being present and enjoying the moment.
Yeah.
So that's why my message through my music is.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I agree more. I couldn't agree more. Like, all we ever have is now. It's all there ever was. It's all there ever is. But, we spend so much time worrying about the future and all these things like maybe they'll come true, maybe they'll happen. And then, sometimes they end up happening, but a lot of them don't. Oh, we spend time so much worrying about like all these things that happened in the past. And it's kind of like, well, this is all we have. So the more we're focused on now, the better it is for what we need to do in life. But then you kind of let go of all the trauma, the pain, and all these other things which almost just stick onto you everywhere. You just let them go when you're solely focused on what's going on right now. And I think that's actually what resonated a lot with sort of your music and with us getting in touch.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because I was talking to my wife a couple of hours ago that I posted this lyric quote about the entering the void and happiness, a state
Yeah,
of mind. And
yeah,
it was like a post that did have a very low likes. I'm
yeah,
not, I
yeah,
don't care about it, but I do
yeah,
notice like,
yeah. Of course, yeah,
and the funny thing was like it didn't get much of attention, but it got like to us to get connected and to do this
yeah, yeah,
Instagram live, which is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And then you started like talking me about the app, and I was wow. There's a literally connection between the meaning of my music and the ENSU app.
Yeah, yeah.
How does the app work?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, what we're doing is helping people use their music listening as a tool for their mental health, for improving their mental health and understanding their mental health. And so there's three parts to the app. We integrate with Spotify, so we have a connection with them. One
Okay,
is we're helping bring awareness to people's mental health and their moods over time through the music that they're listening to.
okay,
And so how that works is basically they download the app and where we get them to sort of label like different basically inner sentiments to different types of music. Like this is my screw the world music, and you know that artist is my I'm unstoppable artist. And so you get some labels from the user. And then
okay,
we look at how they're listening to music. We look at the properties of the songs. We do like lyric analysis on the songs, all these sort of complex machine learning things. And then we
okay.
can start to understand what does a person feel based on what they're listening, how they're listening to music, what they're listening to. And so we show that to people through like a Fitbit for your emotions almost, but through
Okay,
the
that's a
but
nice
through
description.
yeah,
Okay,
but through the music you listen to. So that's kind of a big part of what we're doing. We have then a social feature so you can connect up to close friends and loved ones. And I can like if I connect up to you and let's say I write you a couple of nice messages like, hey Chris, I love that post about entering the void, even though all the other idiots didn't see it and didn't like it.
okay,
And
yeah,
then I write you that note, and then if you check in that you're sad, then you get these nice messages from me. So we're kind of in that moment when you're distressed. So we're kind of building that connection between people as well.
yeah.
Um,
Okay,
and then the third piece is then using the music to actually improve mental health outcomes and improve your emotional state. And so there's two ways we're doing that. One is if I check in, you can kind of like press a button, like a help button in the app, and then we recommend you songs from Spotify that you listen to in certain emotional states. So we're giving you songs like what are the top songs that you listen to in Spotify that will sort of increase your mood. And so
so
we
I
call
could
that,
say I feel sad, for example, and then the
yeah,
app would give me some songs like helping me change this mood.
yes, correct. But then they're also songs that you listen to normally. So we're filtering those from what songs you listen to. We're not just throwing sort of random songs at you.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. And then the second piece is we have these playlists that are built using like music therapy principles. So basically in music therapy, if there's a whole industry around this, if you're sad and you're anxious and you're here and I'm trying to move you to happy, I can't just play you music that you listen to when you're happy because you're going to be like, dude, I don't want to
I
listen
don't
to
want to
this shit.
listen to it.
Yeah, I'm like, what the
Yeah,
hell is
yeah.
this? I can't listen to this. Turn this
Okay.
off. And so
Yeah,
we
yeah.
kind of need to, we need to play you music that fits that mood at the start. So it's kind of like sad or anxious type of music. And then we move you on this curve to sort of then play you music that you listen to when you're relaxed. And then at the end, like some of the happier kind of music you listen to. So we have those playlists that we can build in Spotify, sorry, in ENSU that you can then listen to on your Spotify account. And then I
Okay.
think for everyone listening, that's the thing that now, we've got you live on. So we brought Chris into this because his music is so sort of relevant to the message. So now if we've given Chris a unique link that he's put up on his link tree that if you click on that link and you download the app, then you get one of these mental health playlists, but it has your top music and then also some of Chris's songs. And those are things that our algorithms have basically done all the work on to say, what are the different songs that could help people in different emotional states based on who they are, what they normally listen to, and what they've checked in. And so our
Okay.
algorithms have done all that work to look through your music. And now if anyone who's listening, if you click on that on Chris's link tree, you'll see him, it say, check out ENSU. You click that, download the app, and then you will have a mental health playlist that is based on Chris's music specifically and the top music that you listen to in Spotify
That's amazing.
in certain emotional states.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Thank you. And happy to take questions on that later afterwards. But I think the last one for me, like I'm really interested. Like I kind of heard your earlier music, which was shaped by you know, some of the events that happen. And you've got things like Entering the Void now. Like at the start, you were like, I'm Chris and I'm going to get rich and famous. And, you know, you've kind of moved from
Yeah,
that. Like,
exactly.
what do you think now is, you know, the next 2 years or so? What's next for you and your music and your music career?
Well, actually, the deeper I get into this kind of mental health process and healing process, I think that's my main drive
Mm,
well, right now with all these isolation, quarantine, I've been like doing a lot of things and writing a lot of music. So in the next couple of years, probably I will have 2 more albums or so, because right
yeah,
now it's like it's interesting because maybe some people are like getting anxious and like closed in their homes and feeling like they can't control anything.
mm,
And for me, it's like the other way around, kind of I know I'm letting go, like by letting go everything, like the info starts to flow and I start to make music. So it's like a very interesting process. So right now I'm doing a lot of writing and recording, and also I want to reach out to more people to help.
yeah, yeah,
Like my main intention is not to become famous, but to share it with the world, and to help make a better world, and
yeah.
to create a more conscious and aware individuals in order to feel happy or happier. And
Damn.
then the interesting thing, it's also doing this, not only sharing and doing concerts and the new album, but rather looking out and reaching for this kind of projects such as your app that
Yeah.
helps people. And I'm really excited because a couple of days ago I talked with she has a foundation. A friend has a foundation of
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
people with disabilities, and so
Mm,
we were
mm,
talking about how the music can help
mm.
different kind of people. And so right now we're working on like 3 aspects. One is to do some workshops with them,
Mm-hmm.
and for example, I will be releasing at the end of May another single, and the cover art is a picture of a blind that took a blind man, which is an amazing picture.
Nice. Oh,
And
that's
then
awesome.
like to have my music like a more meaningful message, and to help
Yeah.
in the most possible way we can. So and also another part of this project I'm working on is like to send music to these different schools for people with
Mm,
disabilities, and
mm-hmm.
that their music inspires them to create art. Uh,
Yeah.
that can be pictures or paintings or poems, whatever. And but I feel like a really nice emotion that the music is helping people in a different way, that only like listening to it and saying, "Oh, okay, it's a nice tune and I'll be happy."
Yeah.
So this next 2 years will be about that, like
That's awesome.
finding ways to share my music and to help through my music connect and make a better world.
That's awesome, man. I'm so glad we met now in the journey, and you know, I'm so glad to be, you know, be along you as you do this. And for everyone tuning in, Chris is going to help make the world a better place through his music. And if you click on his Linktree profile and you check out ENSU through his Linktree, you will be able to download the mental health playlist that has his music and your top music. So again, check out his profile on Linktree, and click on the ENSU Chris Koehn link to check us out today.
Exactly.
Yeah. And any questions from anyone in the audience before we wrap things up? Thank you all for listening, and thank you all for joining in. We really appreciate it. This was both of our first IG lives. It's been a fun experience, and
Yeah,
you
it
know,
has
Chris,
been.
I'm so glad we did this, Chris. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. So I don't know if people do have some questions, but again, as I'm all told, my link tree, there's a link to the ENSU app, so you can join in and start working on the emotional healing process. And well, it has been a pleasure, Amol.
Likewise, likewise. It's been a really good time, and thanks everyone for joining in. Check out Chris's link tree, check out ENSU, and feel free to direct message either of us if you've got any questions at the end. And hopefully, you're all doing somewhat okay. Hang in there and use music for your mental health. And thanks a lot, everyone. This was a lot of fun.
Excellent. So I think we had a question. What's the connection between running and music?
Ooh.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, I think music has a mantra process for at least for me during running. When I do run marathons, so actually I work on this playlist for every marathon according to the region where I'm going to. But it has two things, like the rhythm of the music, like can get you to a constant pace, and a connection for like getting like entering this void without any distractions. The only thing I think with running and music, you don't have to use music as loud as you would normally use, because you have to stay connected to the earth, to the context. So it can be like a tool, a help to keep you focused, but it must be like a subtle tool in order to not to hear your heartbeat and how you're pounding your feet. So it has this duality, but it has a lot of connection, like music and running.
Yeah, a ton. I think, our perspective is always, we look at what is the strategy? What is the strategy of what that person is doing when they're listening to music? And so we actually, because in the app, people track their activities as well alongside the music. So we actually have a lot of data on how people listen to different types of music in different, not even different times they run, but different kind of things that they're running for. So like if I'm running because I'm like, man, Chris, I'm so sick of this bloody quarantine and I'm done with this. And it's 4 p.m. I need to get out of here. And I'm just running to kind of divert away from, like, almost just escape, like, catch a break from what's going on. Then that music listening is actually, like, we would say the strategy for that is revival. And that's kind of very different to, like, am I Usain Bolt and I'm, sitting here thinking, okay, I'm going to sort of break my personal record. And then they would be listening to a different strategy called strong sensation, which they're then trying to actually use music to impact their performance. So from what we've seen, it's actually very similar to kind of what you said around, if people are trying to connect to the earth, etc. It's one thing. And then you've got the other times of what is that specific purpose of what they're trying to achieve. And usually without realizing it, people are selecting music based on that purpose. But you can kind of do that more strategically as well, when you realize what that purpose is, and then you realize there is science as well that kind of tells you how to do that the most. Yeah.
Because music has different effects depending on the culture.
Yes. Yeah. Hugely. I think you can answer this. I'll have a first crack at it. Very, 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 very big set of impacts. So basically, the effect that music has on people is very nuanced, and it depends on like your tastes in music. It depends on your stage of life, your age, your experiences you went through, and then culture is a really, really big one. So an example is if they play a song, it's called Men at Work, which is like they play it at a lot of bars and other things. For most people who hear it, they'll be like, this is a cool kind of reggae song. If I hear it, I'm going to go crazy because it's an Australian song and it's like a very deep song. Like, I'm from Australia, and it's a big song for our culture. And so you see basically very different, like when we cluster users, because we kind of look at like, which users listen to music similarly, so we can kind of help them look at like what music is going to help them, etc. we cluster users based on like their different characteristics, and over time we realize people falling into sort of different cultural characteristics. Like people will listen to music differently depending on their culture, and that does have a big difference actually with kind of the how people interpret it, how much people enjoy it, but then also like the chemical impacts that it has on your brain. Because if you like, I listen to reggaeton. I can't speak Spanish, man, but I love it. Like, I love reggaeton so much, but I can't speak any Spanish. So I'm singing all this stuff, but I don't understand the lyrics, right? So it's really funny. My friends laugh at me. But if you do understand the lyrics, and that kind of ties into your culture and your experiences, and they're singing about your hometown, then the dopamine hit that gets sent to your brain is so much higher than if someone who's in Mozambique who's never heard your song before hears it. So it's a very, very big impact.
Exactly, and it's funny about the lyrics you're talking to. I, Probably you saw this Sugar Man documentary about Rodriguez.
Yeah.
It was funny that like here, where in the US he wrote these songs, and he was like not closely noticed, and then afterwards he sees that in Africa he's like the Beatles. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting, like the meaning of the lyrics, like on a different culture, like since all his lyrics are about protest, like in Africa it took like much more
Yeah.
sense than in the US. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting how music, like the same song, can impact on a different culture.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Great.
Any other questions from anyone, any of our viewers?
Mijangos, Mitch, do you have questions?
All right. Well then, Chris, it's thanks everyone for listening, and Chris, this was a lot of fun. We have to do it again sometime. It was really good chatting, and I'm so excited to be working with you on everything.
Okay, thank you, Amol. It was a pleasure and really, really exciting.
Likewise, thanks everyone for dialing
Okay,
in.
thank you
Please
everyone for
check
listening.
out Chris's link tree and get on ENSU through Chris's link tree to listen to Chris's music in a new way.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Bye,
See you,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.